Hi, welcome to our podcast, Just Scare Us Already. This is a podcast where we talk about horror movies, old and new, as well as concepts that we've seen popping up and just some interesting things that we want to talk about. So today we're going to discuss creature designs and the recent ones that we've been seeing popping up just about everywhere. I am one of the hosts, Cheyenne, with my co-host, David.
Hello, everyone.
And I guess, Dad, if you want to go ahead and get started.
So we decided to bring up the topic of the recent horror movies and the very similar creatures that a lot of these horror movies have. Uh, Particularly, in my opinion, I think a lot of the recent horror films have kind of been using the same type of creature and the long, tall, skinny, creepy looking, character. And it just seems like there haven't been a whole lot of original creatures lately. Outside of the typical slasher movies, there seems to be no real original creature effects, or so to speak. It seems like everyone is kind of using the same type. So what do you think, Shai?
I agree. I think that going through finding the photos for all these creatures, and I rewatched a lot of the movies that we listed, it was one of two creature designs, really. It was either really lanky and skinny and creepy looking, or it was like a really big demorphed face of some sort, kind of like Barbarian and Smile. And so I saw like the two designs really only, and maybe like a few differences here and there. So is there one that you want to talk about first?
Well, like you just mentioned, you had the creature from Smile, which looked a lot like the creature from Mama, and looked a lot like the creature from um, several other movies, Barbarian, Insidious, Come Play. So a lot of the characters are very similar in design and concept. So what does that say about the horror movies um, nowadays? Are they getting lazy, or do they feel like this type of character scares people?
Yeah, I agree. So like this one I have up right now is Smile.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the two designs in the movie. Well, one of three designs in the movie, because you see obviously the smiling faces, which was very reminiscent of Truth or Dare from Blumhouse. And I don't know if I don't actually. Let's see which one came out first. There's Smile, which came out in 2022, and Truth or Dare, which came out 2018. So Truth or Dare came out first, and yeah, the same look exactly, minus a little bit more special effects in Truth or Dare.
Mm-hmm.
But you have this design, which is very similar to the creature design in Barbarian, where it's very like humanoid, but like dysmorphic face, really big, lanky woman specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just kind of it feels lazy, especially because Barbarian, which is a whole other rant, didn't fully make sense as to why a person who's supposed to be naturally born, even if it's through incest, would look like this deformed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Versus at least in Smile, like it's a creature feeding off of guilt and trauma. So it being like deformed and everything kind of makes sense. A deformed version of her mother who she saw kill herself. But like this design, I felt like just kind of said, well, how can we make a woman look really gross?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a copy of a copy of a copy, where the guy apparently was impregnating his own children. So it that tries to explain why she came out so
Yeah.
grotesque. But
But wait, timeline wise, it wouldn't make sense unless he was having the kids with very young kids.
well,
Because
when
it
they
happened
do
in the
it,
60s.
Yeah, it might have been even in the 50s.
Look, it's the 50s
Yeah.
to 2020, where the woman is maybe, let's say, hopefully like 20-ish, 30 maybe, the creature.
Mm. Mm.
So like it would have been her granddad at most, maybe great granddad.
Mm. Maybe, yeah,
Well, I
because
guess depending on
well,
how young he started.
right. I mean,
Well,
once she's able to have a baby, that's probably
yeah,
when it
exactly.
started.
So
So,
depending on where everything started, but still, I think it's kind of like how do we make it as horrifying of a woman as possible?
mm.
And in the eyes of that, I guess that just means really tall and a bit deformed of a face.
Hmm.
Versus Smile, at least it had this creature as well, which I'll give it props. This one was a really freaky creature and a good design. So
Yeah,
at least I
yeah.
had that. But then you go into movies that have all taken inspiration from this man here, Slender Man.
Hmm.
And I feel like he's kind of the catalyst, or maybe one of the recent catalysts for this whole lanky, long fingered creature design that we've been seeing lately.
Hmm.
As a Slender Man, he's from a creepypasta. So, what do you think of his design?
Yeah, but for it to be the beginning, it kind of was creepy, but then, they also did a very similar character in The Conjuring, too, where he looked very similar to Slender Man, the long, lengthy body and, you know, the long fingers. So, that was also very reminiscent of that Slender Man character. And then kind of like Smile and um, Barbarian, you also had the character in um, Mama, who looks, that same very long, stretched out creature, long, pointy fingers, you know. So yeah, it just seems like there's so many movies that are using this now, this whole concept. I mean, there have been some, I guess you could say, original breakaways like Imaginary, the creature in Imaginary, the big ugly teddy bear, or in Terra, where Terra, what is it? Terra, how you pronounce
Tarot.
it? Tarot.
Tarot.
I always mess that word up. Tarot, where you had several different creature characters. So um, those seem more original as of late than a lot of what we've been getting in the past with the long, creepy looking character.
Yeah, I think so. Slender Man was created in 2009, roughly. And I think when people were reading about him, I don't even know if Slender Man was really scary even back then.
Hmm.
The concept of him was scary, but I don't know if he was scary. I mean, a tall, lanky man in a suit who has no face, not super scary. So I will say lately we have been getting versions of that design with a little bit of creativity and a little bit of a freakiness. So like Empty Man didn't showcase it as much, but that long skeletal creature with multiple hands on him, and that's at least like a kind of cool design. And I would say iteration of the Slender Man trope.
Hmm.
You have things like the Wendigo in Antlers, who again tall, lanky with the antlers, but kind of like its own creature, kind of similar to the one in Watchers,
Hmm.
where it was you could tell where the inspiration was. You can tell how it's all sort of the same thing, especially the spindly fingers. I don't know why that is being seen as such a scary thing lately, because especially with Babadook, that's really the only part of him that is remotely freaky and
Hmm.
creepy,
Hmm.
is his spindly little fingers
Yeah,
and
I
that
think
smile.
I think it's always been kind of, you know something that was used as a scary component. Even back in the day, uh, you know if you think about like Poltergeist, where the tree limbs, started moving and it looked like fingers, and then eventually the tree
Hmm.
does come alive and grab the little boy, and pull him out the window. So I, I think it's always kind of been one of those scary things, or oh, there's this creepy hand that's gonna reach out and grab you. So it seems like a lot of movies are using that concept. It just seems like it's being played too much. Come Play, again, the creature was, this long, lanky, creepy looking thing. You also had the creature from Insidious, The Last Key, where again you had the same concept, the same creepy, long body, grotesque looking uh, creature. So I think
Hmm.
um, I think for some reason movie makers are feeding on this and saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, let's have a creature like the creature in this movie or a creature in that movie," instead of trying to come up with something original on their own.
Yeah. And I wonder if going back to what you said, if it has anything to do with that old fear of like, you see the shadow of the tree limbs and it kind of looks like fingers in the window, and that whole concept, or the image of seeing like small or like long fingers wrapping around a door frame or the
Mm-hmm.
corner, and that's all you see at first. I wonder if it all kind of stems from that imagery, because that's, I'll give it to him, that's a scary imagery when the fingers slowly wrap around something
Mm-hmm.
in a horror movie. That's freaky. But yeah, it's seeing it over and over again, or seeing the same creature design, especially when you look at something like Mama and then It, where they
Mm-hmm.
basically directed by the same person, so probably had some sort of say in the creature design, but it's like the same exact image,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially between Mama and the painted lady. And
Right.
it just kind of takes the fear away from it when you've seen something like Mama and you go, oh, she's creepy. Because Mama, when I saw that, she freaked me out. I did not like her one bit. She just kind of gave me like that icky feeling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then you see it again in It, and it's just kind of like, okay, well,
Yeah. Seen
okay.
that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seen that, been there.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think for me at least, it takes away from a lot of the movie. You can have a movie that's well paced, suspenseful, creepy. It creates a scary atmosphere, and then you hit me with the same creature I just saw in four other movies. It's kind of like, here we go again. There's nothing that's like, oh wow, that's really freaky. That's really scary looking.
Yeah. So I'll like, even with the movie It Lives Inside, which was a good movie on Hulu. All about, identity, especially with being an immigrant to the country, to America. When it finally got to the creature, because it doesn't show the creature majority of the movie, maybe till like the last 20-30 minutes of it.
Hmm.
And you see this creature, which I'll say had a little bit of a cooler design than most. Like, it had skulls in its body because of all the different souls that it carried. But even so, I mean, at the end of the day, it looks a lot like, the creature from Grim Cuddy with the smile and the face, the creature from Conjuring, same teeth
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
design, the lankiness, the skeletal look of the creature from His House, as well as the Insidious, The Last Key.
Hmm.
So even though I wanted to like the design, I kind of was a little disappointed seeing it at the end. I was like, okay, that's cool, I suppose. Versus movies like, yeah, Tarot, I thought had really unique creature designs that were clearly given a lot of care into designing and creating.
Hmm.
Each one, although not super new, were really interesting to look at.
Right.
And so I'll give them that. Other than Death kind of looked the same as all the other skeleton creatures.
Right.
But like the high
Yeah.
priestess looked really cool. The jester
Hmm.
looked really cool. The magician was okay.
Yeah. Some of them kind of look like B-rated, you know, horror movie characters, but some of them were pretty unique. Kind of reminded me a little of, you know, the creature effects in the Hellraiser films. Where you
Yes.
had a bunch of different characters. You know, a lot of those were unique. A lot of those were wow. That's pretty freaky. You know, even Pinhead. I mean, it just to see a character like that with all the pins in his head and face, you know, was unique. And if you look back at the older movies, you know, yeah, there were some movies that kind of ripped each other off. You know, after Aliens came out, then you had uh, movies like Leviathan, and several other underwater movies where the creatures all kind of look the same, you know, with
Mm-hmm.
big giant teeth and, you know, would bite your head off kind of thing. So yeah, there were a lot of movies in the 80s that kind of did as well. But yeah, Hellraiser definitely had a lot of unique creature characters that, you know, I think a lot of films missed out on.
Yeah, I think Hellraiser is such a good example I didn't even think about. It's such an amazing way of looking at like how do you make normal humans and then give them small aspects or sometimes slightly larger aspects that are horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such cool and interesting and different designs that Clyde Barker did to really bring alive to life all these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean you no one has the same silhouette as Pinhead unless it's like an actual someone trying to copy Pinhead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such a shame. I mean, because even when you look at like 80s, and I know that obviously, you know, slasher movies are different than monster movies. But when you look at things like Freddy Krueger and Jason and Michael and Chucky, they're all so unique and different that like no one would get them, other than maybe Michael and Jason, get them confused.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even with Freddy having like the fingers, like the claws on his fingers, so he kind of has like the long, lanky fingers. He has that burnt face that kind of gives him something different, as well as he's comedic. He has the stupid sarcasm and the stupid one-liners that make him such a different character that brings him to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays we have all these monster movies where the monster doesn't have any personality, any sort of characteristics really. It's just a look of something scary.
Right.
And that's it. And even when you look at older movies, like, or not older movies, but movies like The Thing, I mean, that monster design of The Thing was amazing
Mm-hmm.
and simple. And you only had to showcase it once because it took the form of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that was cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you can go back to the 50s, the 60s, you know, and special effects were not great, and costume design, character creature designs were bad at best. But you know, you still had some films that fed off of each other. You know, they tried to use the same type of Martian or the same type of monster, but then you had the classics. You know, Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf. You know, the Mummy. Those were all
Mhm.
original characters that, you know, nobody tried to copy, you know, until later on. Then you had movies like The Howling and Werewolf, where, you know, they tried to feed on that whole werewolf thing. You had,
Yeah.
you know, they filmed I can't think of the name of the movie now. Um, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it.
Which creature?
You know, the vampires versus werewolves.
Oh, Underworld.
Underworld, yeah, you had the Underworld films where Again, yeah, you had the shape shifting werewolves against the vampires. So
Hmm.
you're always going to have films that are going to use those type of liberties and create creatures. And there's only so much you can do with a werewolf and a vampire. But yeah, like you said, when you had the slasher films, there were copies. There were movies that tried to be like Michael Myers and tried to be like
Hmm.
Jason. Uh, Even most recently, with
Oh
a
gosh.
violent nature, they might as well just
Uh,
call that Jason Walks in the Woods.
and that one was such a disappointment to show the monster. I loved I didn't love it. I hated it. But I liked when it was not showing him, where it
Hmm.
painstakingly was not showing him. And then it did. What was it, like 50 minutes in? No, not even 50 minutes, like 30 minutes in maybe.
Hmm.
And the makeup was good. I'll give it that, but it took away any sort of curiosity, fear, anything I had for the movie going into it.
Right,
And I just said,
right.
"Oh, okay, it's a big zombie that looks like the characters from The Hills Have Eyes."
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it definitely, wasn't very original. The entire movie wasn't original, but it is what it is. But getting back to the characters in the horror films now, it seems like lately we've been getting two versions. We've been getting the same lengthy, long, creepy character, or we get a religious horror film, which we can always talk about on another podcast. But
Yeah,
it seems like those are the only two type of movies we're getting lately, and
it
and,
really
and
is. I mean,
it's
even
disappointing.
let's look at the movies that are coming out soon. Quiet Place, same kind of the creature design,
Hmm.
um, which to me it looks so much like I don't know if you saw Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah.
The Demogorgons in those
Hmm.
almost verbatim, the same thing. I mean, I don't know if one of them took inspiration from the other, but the whole face opening thing, exact same design basically,
Hmm.
which is such a shame. And then the other movies coming out are Beetlejuice, which is just a sequel,
Hmm.
The Crow, which I'm actually excited for, but a remake.
Right.
Speak No Evil, also a remake and a slasher movie,
Hmm.
although that one looks amazing. I don't know what They Listen really is. I haven't found anything about that. Never Let Go, which looks like a zombie movie with Halle Berry. Blink
Hmm.
Twice, which is a killer movie as well, like a serial killer possibly. And then Trap, a serial killer movie. So we have, of the ones coming out, we have nothing that is at least a monster movie.
Right. Well, don't forget The
So we can't really
Exorcist.
compare those. Oh, and then, oh, the new Russell Crowe exorcism
Yeah.
BS. The same movie twice. I really think Russell Crowe signed up for both movies thinking it was the same movie.
He may have.
Like, I really think he signed the contract and said, "Didn't we just film this?" And they said, "No, no, no, this is a whole different one with the exact
Right.
same
Yeah, that was
concept."
the Pope's Exorcist. Now this is the Exorcist.
Like this one, you're playing a pope. The other one, you're an actor playing a pope. So
Right.
it's just kind of dumb. But either way, anyways, yeah, it's and I know that it's obviously it's harder nowadays to make a creature that's brand spanking new. Because there's
Hmm.
so many designs that have been done and it's hard to not go, oh well, this aspect of it reminds me of this movie and this aspect of it reminds me of that movie, and maybe we're just very nitpicky, but I'm just like excited for a monster who shocks me. Like The Ritual on Netflix, that movie shocked me. That creature in it, I don't know if it's based off of any actual creatures in like European folklore or anything, but that creature design
Hmm.
was really cool. The creature in No One Comes Out Alive on Netflix, that one is also really interesting and a very cool design that I haven't really seen anywhere else. And I hope that we get some creativity, even if it's simple, like a simple design, just something new.
Yeah, I mean, and there have been some uh, other original creatures, like the creatures in the movie The Mist. They
Yeah,
definitely came up with some unique creature effects in that one. They didn't all look similar to something else. Those all looked pretty
those are
original.
cool.
Yeah. It the creepy clown. There's only so much you could do with that, but then again, they had some original looks in there, except
Yeah,
for the painting and the I don't know what you would call them,
I think he's like
the
called the leper or something like that.
the leopard. Okay,
I
okay.
think so, but yeah, I agree. The when it has all those teeth when he opens his mouth and everything, that's a cool design. That's
Hmm.
a really sick design. The spider, give or take, whatever. But yeah, I mean, and then it itself, Pennywise, the design that they did for the newer movie, the Bill Skarsgård one, such a cool, creepy clown.
Hmm.
Absolutely haunted so many people's nightmares to see that version of it. And even the Tim Curry version of a very old school clown
Hmm.
was still really cool. I mean, there weren't a lot of movies, to my knowledge, that were just showing old school clowns in a horror like that, like not at all changing him to look scarier.
Right.
I mean, and then
Yeah.
you have the newer ones like Art the Clown from the Terrifier movies that are hit or miss if you like those.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, he's an old school clown look, but he's a bit of a creative design.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's and since we're talking about the thin, lanky looking creatures, you had a similar, although they weren't tall, but in the film Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, you had the little creatures that came up from the underworld or underground,
Hmm.
but they, when you saw them up close, they were, you know, skinny and creepy looking,
Yeah,
so similar,
they kind of were
almost
like a
similar to what.
small. They were like a small version
What would,
of Come Play,
yep, yep,
but I mean, they were. It was at least a cool take on Tooth Fairies.
yeah, yeah. It was definitely an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
But anytime you see a little kid being terrorized like that, it's like nobody wants to believe him.
Yeah, I mean, Guillermo del Toro, he did that one, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
He does a good job. His creatures are kind of similar. I mean, Shape of Water had the same lanky creature as Mama, as Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, as Pan's Labyrinth, the creature with the hands, who freaked me out as a kid. Very similar design. But I will say Pan's
Hmm.
Labyrinth at least had some cool other creatures. But yeah, I mean, I'm just asking any movie creator out there or monster designer or anything like that, just give us something new. Give us something cool, something simple, or don't show the monster. Let our
Right.
imagination really take over on these kind of movies. Like I think
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
biggest issue is
It's
I would rather my imagination be the biggest fear than seeing a creature.
true. Yeah. It's definitely disappointing. Because like I said, you just get a lot of movies where we're seeing the same type of creature at the end of the movie, and it's like, okay, here we go again. Nothing original, nothing new. So fingers crossed they'll start to, you know, make more interesting characters and kind of revive the horror movie genre, because a lot of the movies lately have just been so, you know, consistently bad that, that's why we're saying just scare us already.
Yeah, it's a shame because yeah, as of late, I can't think of a single movie other than maybe, and we've talked about this before, maybe Talk to Me. And even
Mm.
then, watching it a second time around, it's slow. It's not as great as it was, and I don't know if it was great in my eyes because everything before it sucked. But like, yeah, I'm getting tired. I really want there to be a good new horror movie, and I'm hoping that maybe we're taking a break from monster movies and hopefully taking a break from religious movies and focusing on these kind of like serial killer, creepy psychological movies with, like I said, with Trapped and Speak No Evil, those and like Blink Twice. That hopefully we're going in that direction for a little bit before we go back
Hmm.
around to monster movies.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, as of right now, nothing good.
No. No. It's definitely been a a trying time because seems like every horror movie that comes out, you're like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna go check that out, and then when you watch it, you come out, you're just shaking your head like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So, oh,
I'm hoping maybe something.
yeah,
But maybe
yeah.
we
I
just
mean,
gotta explore indie films.
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there are some indie films out there that are decent, and then there are some out there that are just not worth the time. Um, so it's hit or miss, and it seems like anything that comes out under A24 gets glowing reviews and 99 on Rotten Tomato, and I watch it and I'm just like, what movie were they watching? Were we even watching
We
the
can
same movie?
we can have a whole A24 episode because I know you're gonna hate me, but as of late, there are some that have gotten me. Not in a scared
Really?
factor. Not in a scared factor in a way where they stick with me so much and it's actually so frustrating because I keep
Hmm.
thinking about them and I go, I don't want to think about you. I don't like you. I don't think I like you, but I keep
Really?
thinking about the movie. Yes, that's stupid. I saw the TV glowing. I did not think I liked it, but it's been in my mind since I watched it.
Hmm.
And so,
Well, maybe I'll have to try. Yeah,
oh,
I've
you'll hate
gone
me.
back. I've gone back and looked at some of the A24 films that I did not like, and
Hmm.
still didn't like them. So, I said, well, maybe I'm just too used to, wanting to see the blood and the gore, or the jump scares, and then you get these movies where there aren't very many jump scares. It's just, the story goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on
Yeah.
and on
And I
and
would.
on and on and on and on and on and on, and then it ends and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, and I would say I wouldn't call, and I think I don't know if it's a marketing thing. I don't know if they're doing it themselves. I would not put any A24 movie under horror. The closest one I
Yeah.
would put under horror is maybe Hereditary because
Okay.
it had enough horror aspects in it and enough scenes that would make someone really scared. Not
Hmm.
me and not you, but make other people really scared. But I would say most of the movies probably fall under like maybe psychological thriller. They really do
Hmm.
focus on the mental aspect of it. And oh, this is like, even I saw the TV glowing. It was less of like, oh, this is scary as it was, oh, that's a depressing and scary concept at the end of the day, but it's not a scary movie. And we can go into more
Hmm.
detail if we ever do an A24 episode. But yeah, I would say none of their movies are horror movies. Their movies are psychological thriller question mark at most. I would even say give it a whole new genre, psychological art or whatever, the
Well,
realistic psycho
so
movie.
what about uh the what's it called, the
Oh,
hand?
Talk to Me. Okay, yeah, sorry, Talk
Yeah,
to Me. I
talk to
forgot what
me.
day 24. Talk to Me. I would also put in horror. It did have scenes where when I was in theaters, other people were jumping and getting scared and freaking out, and so I would say that those ones probably. land under horror, but things we're all going to the fair, or Pearl, or The Witch. I would not say any of those are horror movies.
Hmm.
They're at best psychological thrillers, at worst a whole new genre
Yeah, no,
called boring psycho movie.
uh, I just can't get into them. I mean, I've watched them, I rewatched them, and I definitely don't find anything that remotely makes me say that was a good movie. But one man's
Yeah, I can get
opinion.
that. Yeah, and I mean, I'm like I told you, I'm trying to rewatch all of them on HBO Max now, as many A24 horror, quote unquote, as I can find. But I
Mm,
can tell you now, none of the scores are getting anything higher than maybe a 5 out of 10
mm,
so far, and that's being very generous. Of, oh, I really like the actor in this movie, or I
right,
really like the cinematography, but anything past that is probably a no go. But I mean, at least A24 is trying something creative and something different. I'll give them the points there. As much as I don't like them and they're not for me, they're not relying on the same thing that every other horror movie is. The same jump
right,
scares that we can call a mile away, the
right,
same beats in the movie, the same type of heroine or hero. It's at least every A24 movie I've seen thus far, each and every single one of them is so different. Whether that's good or bad, they're all so different that I can at least give them that creativity aspect of it.
so it's
Unlike
not.
Blumhouse, who
Yeah.
just signs the same movie
Yep,
over and over
Blumhouse.
again.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That at least they're not Blumhouse, where it's the same campy horror film that they seem to only produce. So, you know,
Yeah.
I guess we have to pick and choose our battles.
Yeah, I'd rather take an A20. Well, I don't know. Would I actually? I don't know if I'd actually take an A24 movie over a Blumhouse movie. At least Blumhouse is stupid, uh, campy horror,
Mm,
like Night Swim, versus drag me through this absolute bore fest of a movie like It Follows,
hmm.
which is
Yeah,
probably my least
I
favorite.
if I had my choice, if I saw, okay, the theater is showing a Blumhouse and a A24 film, I'm going to see the Blumhouse. At least I
Did you?
know I'll be slightly entertained.
Yeah. I do think we might be getting a break from Blumhouse soon, though. I heard that they're going into the video game world.
Really?
They have 6 indie video games coming out.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
we'll
then
see.
maybe
But they're
that.
also a company, they're a company who I think also just put their names on things.
Mm,
So I don't know if we're actually going to get a break from them.
true.
But yeah.
So overall, hopefully we will get some new horror films and some new creatures that won't fall into the same humdrum category. And, we'll definitely be talking about the new films that will come out in the future.
Yeah. So definitely make sure you catch us on our next episode, where we are on Spotify and YouTube. So give us a like, subscribe, and follow. And we will see if there will finally be a movie that will scare us.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you.